Welcome to the Candle Business Coach Podcast, a show about the craft of candle making and small business. I'm your host, Kirsty Allen, and I'm a candle maker, mum of three, and kindness advocator. Join me as I dive into all things candles and small business and deliver advice and tips to you in episodes every Tuesday and Friday. Are you on the list to get my daily motivation emails? Every day I'll send you a message that is designed to help keep you focused on taking action toward your goals. Sign up using the link in the show notes. Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. Today on the show, I have the lovely Georgia. She is a fellow candle maker, and I'd love to introduce her to you. So, Georgia, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hello everyone, it's so good to be here. So a little bit about me, I'm 22. I currently live in Wodonga, Victoria, so right on the border of New South Wales and Victoria. I grew up in a small town and I was surrounded by small businesses. When I first got inspired to do my business, I was living out at the farm and I am very creative. I've always loved photography and love to keep my hands busy. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
So how did you get started with candle making? Out of all the different businesses that you could start, what drew you to candle making?
Perfect. So my mum actually really wanted to get into it. She has for quite a while. So we first started a business called Country Haven, and it was mainly based on the farm. And so we started candle making through that, and it's something that we did together. But obviously now you know me as Amanii, so we left Country Haven behind and I started doing candle making through Amanii. So yeah, that's how I started it. And I fell in love with making candles, so I stuck at it.
Amazing. So what was the process like when you first started your business, like in terms of how did you begin, like what did you start doing first?
So the very first thing we started doing, so once again, I started as Country Haven, so that's where my process mainly started, was very overwhelmed by everything we had to do for it, but because we make our candle vessels ourselves, the concrete vessels, we had to start from the very beginning, so we had to start from what concretes to be used, what mix-ins like plaster and sand and all that kind of stuff, what sealer we had to use. And it was very overwhelming at the very start because there's not a lot of information out there about starting a concrete business with candles in Australia. And because you obviously purchase products from Australia, it was a very big process of buying different bags of concrete and all the rest of it. But yeah, so very overwhelming start, but after a few months I got the hang of it and worked it out.
Yeah, amazing. And it's so good to see you sort of trailblaze in a new area with the candle making as well. Why did you decide to make your own vessels using concrete?
Honestly, I've always been told to do something different. My family has always run businesses. So, and as I said, I've always been around small businesses, so I've always been told to do something different. And I saw someone make them in America. I think it was on TikTok I saw them make it. And I was like, oh, I'd love to give that a try. And so we did. We did all the research, but unfortunately there was just nothing in Australia. So I just took what was in different countries and tried to figure out the best products we had here in equivalent. And yeah, it was just a point of difference, I guess, and giving people a more simplistic, rustic, modern, minimalistic design.
Yeah, I love that. And I've seen your designs on your Instagram and website, and they're truly beautiful. They're so professionally made and they just look gorgeous. So yeah, thank you for trying something new and bringing something different to the market.
Thank you.
So when thinking about running your business, how do you manage completing all the relevant tasks needing to be done, especially since you're always torn in different directions with running a business?
Yeah, for sure. I seem like I am just constantly busy at the moment, which is amazing, but it does get overwhelming. So in my office, I have a big planner on my wall. I have a diary dedicated to business. And honestly, the biggest thing that keeps me straightforward and not to get overwhelmed by the amount of tasks I have to do is my partner. I think that is the biggest thing, having someone in your life who is just as passionate about you, if not they're passionate about you, and so they want to keep you running and keep you going, and so he really helps me keep on the straight and narrow and working out what tasks are priority and what can probably wait.
I love that. It's so nice to have someone to support you on this journey, particularly when you go through the hard times, to have someone sort of pick you up and say, no, you've got this, you can do this, and keep going. I love that. So good.
Yeah, for sure.
So what's been one of your biggest wins in your business so far?
Honestly, it's finding, and I know this is going to sound silly to a lot of people, but the right sealer for the concrete, because we discovered very quickly that concrete and the mixes that go into it, like sand and plaster, are very porous and it does not like wax. And so the biggest challenge for us was trying to get that, and we did it, and that was so good.
Amazing. Is there anything else you'd love to share with the listeners about your business?
Honestly, I was just going to have a quick share about what Amanii is. So we, at the moment, specialise in concrete designs, and we are specific in home design, and we handcraft everything ourselves, and it starts from dust and finishes in a beautiful product.
I love that.
Yeah, very proud
That's
of
so good.
one.
It's such a nice tagline as well.
Yep.
So just thinking about candle businesses in general, if someone's listening to this episode and they're considering starting, why do you think someone should begin their journey down the candle making path?
Honestly, if you love learning something new, because every time I jump on either your page or someone else who makes candles, I'm always learning something new, which is absolutely astounding, and I love it so much. And honestly, if you love candles, you might as well have a crack and learn more about what it takes to just do a single candle. I know for me, I got into candles because I absolutely love them, and I think my partner was getting sick of me buying too many, so I was like, I'll up you one and I'll make it myself.
Yeah, love that.
So now we have candles everywhere. But yeah, that's why I started. And once you get doing the candles, the process, you just fall in love with it, and it's so relaxing to do.
It's almost like therapy. It's so therapeutic when you're making them and melting the wax and then pouring it into the vessel. It's a lovely process.
Yeah, for sure.
So what do you wish you knew when you first started making candles? Like, what would have made your journey a little bit easier if you knew what you knew now?
Probably understanding how temperamental soy wax is. We use soy wax for our candles, and with the weather in Victoria, it is constantly on and off, and knowing that affected it probably would have been really great, because I just would have saved a lot of frustration and not thinking it was my fault and what I was doing. And it was just all the different elements that went into it, that kind of thing, because I didn't understand it and I was getting very frustrated. But now that I understand it a lot better, it's easier.
Yeah, definitely. And I think a lot of people want to start out with soy wax to begin their journey, but they don't quite understand or realise just how, as you say, temperamental it can be, and the different results you can get can be quite varied depending on so many factors. So, yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
what are some of the challenges you faced when you first started candle making? And you may have touched on this before with the sealer, but were there any other challenges?
Like I said, it was the whole that no one had done any research on it in Australia. So sourcing the products like concrete and the right mixes to go into it was really, really hard. Like, we went through bags and bags of concrete and different sands and different plasters to try and work out what would actually be the most versatile vessel. And yeah, that's pretty much, it's the exact same thing as I went over before, like the sealer and that. But just not having enough research at the end of the day, and not having enough resources here in Australia to do it.
Definitely. And I think a lot of people experience overwhelm as well. Like, on one hand, they're really excited to get started with their journey and they want to make candles as soon as possible, but then they do all the research and then can get overwhelmed and think, oh gosh, there's a lot more to it than I first thought. So it's nice to share what our challenges are when we first start, just to help share that we all go through the same sorts of problems and issues.
Yeah, for sure.
So what is a common myth or misconception about making candles, do you think?
Well, a few things for me. Someone told me it was easy, and I don't know who that was, but I should not have believed them. And I did not think you would need as much math as what you do. I am not very good at math, so I'm glad I have a calculator.
Yes.
And the first pour, like, you pour it in and it's done, that is so incorrect, especially with soy wax. Just like the time it takes to make it look nice is a lot more than just a pour and
Yeah,
go.
definitely. There's a lot more to it. And as you say, there's a lot of math involved. And once you know the formula and can crack the code, then it becomes a bit easier. But yeah, it definitely is a hurdle if it's not your strong point.
Yeah.
So in your opinion, what do you think is the most important strength someone would need to have to be successful as a candle maker?
So I reckon the most important one, especially when you're just starting out, is patience. Having a lot of patience to learn, to research, just having the time to sit down and learn those things is really, really important. And having an eye for detail as well. So working out your point of difference and all that kind of stuff is really important.
I think patience is one of those things where you get better at it as you go because you want to improve on your business. You want to make the best candle possible, but you need to have that patience to make it work long term. When you start your candle business, there are so many things to consider and research along the way, especially when it comes to choosing the right suppliers. Long Story Short provides all your design and printing needs, from your logo and branding to designing and printing your product labels. The quality is exceptional, the customer service is amazing, and prices are very reasonable. They're the only label company I recommend, so check out their website or send them an email today to get started. hello@longstoryshortdesign.com.au. Is there anything else you'd like to share about candle making with the listeners?
Try your best, as much as it is hard, try your best to find Australian help. At the very start, I didn't realise it wasn't Australian, and I was getting very frustrated, and do ask for help. I have a lot of people now that I'm in the candle gig ask me for help in where to look and what to look for, and I help them out because I wish I had done that. I wish I had asked for help. And I just didn't, and I wish I did. So that's a big thing
definitely being humble enough to know that you don't know everything and ask others for assistance along the way. And I love about the candle making community is that so many people are willing to share their advice and their tips to help others along their journey. So it's nice that you've been able to do that as well.
For sure.
What does your weekly routine look like as a small business owner?
At the moment, it's a bit out the window because, as my followers know, I've just moved house, so trying to get back into the same routine I had is a bit of a struggle. But what usually happens is my vessels during the day are my number one priority because they're so time consuming. They're my number one priority. So usually I'll get up, do my socials, check emails, check messages, all that kind of stuff. I'll go out to my garage and I'll pour vessels and seal what needs to be sealed. And while that's drying, I'll come in, do more admin, and then I'll go back out, demold, re-pour, reseal whatever needs to be sealed. And that's pretty much how the day goes. Just slotting in admin where I can, but the demolding and the vessels is my number one priority. We usually only pour vessels if I'm doing a big restock or we have markets coming up, just because of my vessels. I have to have quite a few of them to do it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Definitely when you attend markets, you want to have a full table full of stock. So being prepared, and because your vessels take time to make, knowing that you've got to prepare, almost weeks in advance to make sure you've got enough stock and it's got enough time to cure. So yeah, that makes perfect sense. So this is a similar sort of question, but how do you prioritise your to-do list each day?
So it is, once again, all around the vessels, just because they are time-consuming. So I just slot all the little tasks in between. So if I have to pack orders or anything like that, they just get slotted in between. They do, however, orders do sometimes get priority, just depending on who needs what and when.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it just is all about the vessels
here.
here.
What's your favourite thing about what you do?
So pouring the vessels is so satisfying, and demolding them I think is my absolute favourite part, and pouring the wax, so satisfying, and mixing the fragrance in, because not only does it smell good, but it just looks so pretty. But yeah, it's the most satisfying.
Love that. Do you think that there are any common myths about running a small business?
Yeah, and I think I hear this a lot through different businesses too, but I guess a lot of people go into business not wanting to work 9 to 5, but most days I start at 7 and stop at 8. And
that's 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., not 7 a.m. to 8 a.m.
yeah, that's it. The longer days, it just, instead of working that 9 till 5, you're working a lot longer hours. And so, I think that's a myth. People think you're going to save a lot of time and have a lot of time on your hands, but especially at the start, you don't.
Yeah, that's right, because often you're still, you've got other competing factors like full-time work or study or family as well. But the difference is, even though you're working more hours or you're spending more time dedicated to your business, you love what you do and you're passionate about doing it. So it doesn't really feel like work sometimes, like you get to enjoy the process. But it's not exactly like you just do, half an hour here and there sporadically and then a business has grown. It takes a lot more effort and a lot more consistency. And when you can get that mix right, that's where you find success.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Do you have one lesson that your journey has taught you that you think everyone should learn at some point in their life?
Yeah, and I guess we learn it before even business, but I think business, being in business emphasizes it, is that not everyone is going to support what you do. Your friends and family aren't probably going to support it for a while, but just having the confidence to know that you're capable of doing something more than you ever thought is really important, and you'll learn that as you go.
I think sometimes when we start a business, no matter what type of business it is, we think our family and friends, not only will they support us verbally, but they'll also pitch in and purchase our products. And that's great when they do, but it's not always the case. So it's to be mindful that if you have the faith and the passion that what you want to achieve is something that you want to pursue, then eventually people will see the success that you have always known you could reach. Yeah. So what gives you motivation to keep going when things get tough?
Knowing that I can, and I know it's probably going to sound silly for some, but knowing that I can rely on myself for my income. Eventually one day, I'm only 22 now, but eventually one day I want to be a stay-at-home mum, and I don't want to have my partner have the financial burden of me staying home. So being able to do what I love and have an income that can support our family would be an absolute treasure, and I think that's what gets me through.
Yeah, I love that. Especially on those hard days when you think, oh, I just can't be bothered doing ABC, whatever it is. But then looking towards the future and having those big goals in mind, you think, no, I actually am going to put the work in today because, future me is counting on current me to make these choices and to make the best decisions possible. So, yeah, I love that. Do you have a favourite productivity hack?
I think it's pretty common, but I either go for a walk with my dogs, or at the moment I've been loving going to the gym, so I'm getting back into that, and it just really helps you reset and just stop thinking about everything at home for a minute, and it just helps you clear your head so you can come back fresh and just work on what needs to be done.
Yes, and definitely more energized as well. How do you define success?
With that one, it's, for me, being proud of where I am, and being proud of the journey that I'm taking, is what I classify as success for me. Not necessarily earning a certain amount of figures. Yes, completing goal is a success for me, but just being proud of where I am now is pretty good.
No, I would definitely agree with that. Do you have any tools, either online or physical, that are indispensable when it comes to running your business? You mentioned your wall calendar before, but are there anything else that you use?
So in terms of that, I find it really good to sort out new information, as it keeps me motivated and sort of grounded. And so having encouragement from people like you and other information from other businesses helps me keep tracking along and helps me keep my progress going. And also another one is following your competitors, because they will teach you so much, and you can learn a thing or two from them, and they will possibly learn a thing or two from you too. So that's what keeps me going.
Yeah, I love that. Is there anything else you want to share about small business in general?
To keep tracking along, and even though you feel like you're not at the same goal as someone else, or you're not as far ahead and you started at the same time, every business is so, so different, and to not get bogged down in the thought of someone else's progress and just focus on your own.
Definitely stay in your own lane when it comes to comparing yourself to others. Just look at what you're doing and try and improve on the person that you were the day before. So this is the fun part of the interview. I'm going to ask you 3 questions that I ask all my guests. Number 1, what is your favourite candle fragrance?
Now, I'm going to say this is going to be hilarious because I don't actually stock this fragrance yet because I can't find the perfect one, but vanilla caramel is my absolute favourite. At the very start of my candle journey, I bought one and it did not smell quite right, and so I've just been really determined to try and find the right one. But yes, vanilla caramel.
Number 2, what do you love about candles?
So the design, obviously the big obvious one is the aroma that it gives the room, but also the beautiful ambience that it gives a room, all in one. You get that all in one, and that is just so nice.
And it can be relaxing depending on the scent, or it can be energizing. You can light a candle when you've got guests over, or you can enjoy one on your own. It's just one of those things where you can sort of treat yourself with a bit of kindness and self-care. And then number 3, what is one piece of advice for new candle makers at the start of their journey?
So I have touched on this one before, but I will reiterate. So don't be afraid to ask for help and advice. I know I didn't ask for help at the start, and that's one of my biggest regrets because I feel like I would have had more information and resources under my belt. And I know so many people asking me for help and asking me where they need to go, and I'm more than happy to help. And so I just feel like I should have done that at the start.
Yeah, we live and learn, I suppose.
Yeah.
So where can the listeners learn more about you and Amanii?
So I am on Facebook, TikTok and Instagram, and I also have a website, which should all be linked in this podcast.
Yes, definitely. I'll pop the links in the show notes, so if people want to learn more about you or see your beautiful vessels and maybe even purchase a product or two, they'll be able to do that through the show notes. Well, Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate you sharing your wisdom and knowledge with the listeners.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Thank you for all you do.
And thanks everyone for listening today. I hope this episode added value to your candle making journey. Check out the show notes for all the links mentioned throughout today's episode. And if you would like to submit a question, send me a DM on Instagram at Candle Business Coach. And if you haven't already, download your free copy of my guide, 5 Simple Steps to Start Your Candle Journey. It contains tips and advice before you make your first candle, and details are in the show notes. Lastly, please subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. And thanks again for listening. Have a beautiful day.